We're introducing our new Starry Nights block sets where you can create all of the Starry Nights quilt 2 blocks at a time. Each of our block sets includes the online instructions and patterns to create 2 blocks, along with the unique templates that are used to create those 2 blocks, and a whole bunch of great education, and of course the embroidery designs that are for each of those blocks. So a lot of goodies that come with it, but more importantly, you're going to be able to use these amazing block sets to create the designs that are part of the Starry Nights Revisited class that Kathy Clawson will be sharing with you today. So we hope you enjoy the amazing preview that Kathy's going to be taking you through. And if you're already a starlet and you have these amazing templates, then I think you're going to love the Starry Nights Revisited and being able to take all of those designs and now turn them into colorful works of art. Enjoy this preview by Kathy Clawson. Thank you.
Hi, welcome to my happy place. I'm Kathy Clawson, promoted instructor for Sew Steady and Westalee templates. Welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to give you a little bit of a preview of a new class that we have starting on Monday, November 13th. The class will be held from 4 to 7 p.m. Central Time. And it's going to be live. We're going to be able to interact with each other during class time, and it is a platform that I just love. I love being able to hear your thoughts as we go through and learn together. And I do say learn together because I learn as much from you as you learn from me. So let's take a look at what we're going to be working on. We're going to be looking at the Starry Night Revisited, and we're going to do it just a little different than the original pattern. We're going to be using our templates, of course, the same way we always do. We're going to be using some coloring techniques along with it. These blocks are gorgeous. They're absolutely beautiful blocks. So to do them in another manner is just upping the game just a little bit, you might want to say, or just getting a totally different look to it. And if you want, you can make one block and do the whole quilt with just that one block, or do all 16 that are different. So we're going to take a look at it. We're going to come up with some new ideas. Here is just one of my blocks from my original quilt. And what we're going to do is we're going to give you 30 minutes to sit back, relax, take a look at how we're going to do Starry Night Revisited. Okay, so one of the things that I like to cover in classes is just the basics, and I like to do this once with the first class. So what I've got here is I have my first block for my first square. I like to make a vertical and horizontal crosshair, meeting in the middle. And then what I do is I put my crosshair ruler, and for example, on this particular block, what we're going to need is, I do believe it's 16, yep. We're going to need 16 rotations. And our book is set up to tell us how many rotations we're going to need for our block number, what it looks like, and I'm going to be going into that in more detail. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to make those 16 rotations. And what I like to do as well is I do like to extend them out a little bit on blocks that are a little larger like this one. Now, if you did get the Starry Night set from the beginning, you already have a 16-point crosshair ruler. How awesome is that? And it makes life a lot easier. But we're going to cover how we can do this with our 8-point ruler. No worries. And we're going to get from point A to point B with no problem. I also am going to cover how I like to extend these lines out just a little bit. They're very easy to extend out. We just take a ruler, line it up, and off we go with them. Okay, so that is the first thing I like to cover. And next, what I like to do is I like to go over with you and just show you a little bit about setting your foot height, making sure that's correct, making sure your tension is correct. And we're going to go through all of that with our project. I like to assume that you guys already know all that stuff, but just in case we have some new beginners in, we don't want to leave them out. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and I am going to get to the machine and pull the directions out and show you a little bit about how the process will work. So just hang on and we'll be right back. Now that we have our block fully marked, I'm going to bring it to the sewing machine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I set my foot height correctly for the block. And I'm going to be using a little different type batting with this particular project. So you're going to get to see how this works as well. I will be using wool batting, and it's going to give us a different loft and it's going to give us a different look. There's so many battings out there and we can use many of them to achieve different looks. So I'm kind of glad that we're going to be able to introduce that here. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we have our tension set correctly. We're going to test that out beforehand and make sure that our foot is at the correct height. So those are two things that I think are vitally important to make sure that your project turns out looking great. With each block, we are going to be given directions. I'm going to show you a little bit here that we will be following. We're going to have our basics with the book. The book, I think, is really vital to doing this class properly because it gives us fabric requirements. It gives us all the requirements we have, whether you want to do one block design or whether you want to do 16 block designs. So it is really, really a valuable tool. And what it tells us is it's going to tell us what templates we need, how many reference lines we need, what the block is basically going to look like when we're finished with it. And you know, just because I chose to do this project using the colored pencils doesn't mean that you have to. If you want to TempLee this project, that's fine. We can deal with that. That's no problem at all. The book is also going to tell us how exactly we're going to stitch out the blocks, what order we're going to take. So what you're going to see when I come in to start the class, I'm going to have my block. I'm going to have it stabilized, and with wool batting I need to stabilize it with stitching because it's a natural fiber or because it's wool. I'm not really sure. Spray basting doesn't work real well with it. And what my hope is that you'll have your first blocks stabilized, marked, and ready to go before class. It's going to help us save a lot of time in class. So then what you're going to see is I'm going to have part of the block all stitched out. And I'm going to give you a little preview of that in a minute. And then I'm going to have part of it actually colored in. So what you're going to see when you come into class is you're going to see me stitch out the rest of the block, which is going to definitely give you the idea of exactly what process we're going to use to do the stitching, because the Starry Night has several new processes that we haven't done before, and they are awesome because these processes have, I know, awakened in me thoughts of how I can use them with other templates to get new and awesome designs. So I'm going to go ahead. I want you to see that stitched out, and we are going to cover how to color things in, making sure that we remain our colors remain bright and the way they're supposed to, even following the washing of our project. What I have done is I have pulled out the 4 templates that I will be using for the number 1 block. One thing I want to note is that in the directions, Leonie West color-coded the templates. And I think that's genius, quite honestly, because it gives you two different ways to make sure that you're not grabbing the wrong template. One, of course, is going to be by the size, which is right here, but secondly, it's going to also be by the color. I just used regular Sharpie markers and went around the inside of the templates and colored them in. I also suggest you have a ruler rack or a template rack. You definitely want to keep your rulers organized while you're working on them. And this tool is invaluable to make sure that we are organized and can easily find our templates when we need them. So I'm going to set those down there, come back to the book, and what I want you to see is that we have different steps that we're going to follow. For example, in block 1, we're going to be doing step 1 through 4, and that's going to just be repeated 3 more times. So the entire block is just simply repeating some of these steps, and it just makes life so easy for us. And we have, of course, on our pattern, we have the color coding on the stars that matches the color coding on our templates. Again, genius. So let's take a look at how we're going to do these, because what we're going to do is we're not going to stitch out the entire star as we go through and do each reference line. So let's take a look here. Something else that's nice to note is on these templates, the larger templates, you actually have a ruler on the side of them, which really makes coming out and measuring out from the center very, very convenient. Now, I like to come in and number my lines. To me, this gives us just another way to ensure that we're going in the right direction and we're doing the right things. Okay, so I will go through and number these lines. So let's take a look at how we're going to stitch these out. the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 2.5-inch Starry Night, and I'm going to come out from the center 2.5 inches. So that is going to happen on line 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it towards me so that it's much easier for you to see what I am doing. The first thing I'm going to do, of course, is I'm going to drop my foot. I'm going to pull my thread up in the center of the block and put my foot down and put my needle back down. So what I'm going to do is show you how we can mark out what I like to do to mark out to make sure I've got the right measurement. And the first measurement I need is 2.5 inches. So each one of these is 1/4 of an inch. So here's 1, here's 2, and here is 2.5. And I'm just going to go ahead and put an arrow there. All we need to do is hold our template down, line up both ends. I do very much like to make sure that I have a hold of that thread that's coming up from the bottom. I like to take a stitch in place before I get going, and that's absolutely personal. It's just the way I do it. Okay, we're going to come up, and now we've hit our 2.5-inch spot. So I'm going to pull out my 1.5-inch star, which is the red star. I love the needle channels. They are so nice. I'm going to line it up, and I'm only going to do half my star. I'm going to make sure to take an extra stitch here in the corners. And up we're going to go and stop at the top. Now I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to bring back and move up 1.25 inches. So let me go ahead and move this for you so that it's easier to see. So there's 1.25 inches. And again, holding it straight. I'm going to stop right there and do a 2-inch star. There we go. I'm just going to turn this around. So what you see is that when we get our star, we're going to come back down here and finish, and then come back to our center. And that is the premise of how we're going to do a lot of our blocks. I wanted you to see this. It's not difficult, okay? It's really easy to do. It just takes a little bit of practice, like everything else. How do you get good at anything? You practice. Okay, now that we have our design all done, what we want to do is we want to look at taking our designs and coloring them in. This is something a little different than we did originally with our Starry Night. And you can color them in with Derwent Inktense pencils, and you can use Prismacolor Professional pencils, other pencils also. The difference between the Derwent Inktense is that they really are an ink-based pencil. The other pencils are a pigment-based pencil. Say that 3 times real fast. Anyway, the Derwent seems to, you can lay down less pencil and get a more intense color with them. However, they all work the same. Now, what I'd like to do is show you just some different examples of how the pencils work. What I've done here is I have 5 petals on this design, and I have used the same pencil in all 5 of these petals. And in this one, I just laid down a light layer of the pencil. That's it. In the second petal, what I did was a light layer, but I added a little more to one side to give it the effect of shading, and it really does shade it beautifully. The third petal, I laid down a lot of color. I went over it and over it and over it, and you can see the difference you get by laying down more color. The fourth petal, I actually dipped my pencil into a fabric medium that we're going to talk about in a second. And what that did was that, with very little effort, gave me a very dark, very intense color. And the fifth petal, what I did was I used what's called an iridescent medium. And what it does is it has little bits of mica powder in it, so it makes it look a little sparkly. Actually, this one kind of looks like maybe a Disney character's ball gown. On this side of our sample, I use the same pencil all the way around, just using these methods here, except the iridescent medium. On this middle one, I dipped my pencil in the medium, and here I just went darker. Here I did the same, a little bit of shading, the same as number 2, and here I did the first one. Let's talk about that textile medium. I use jacquard textiles. It's for natural or synthetic fabric. It has an excellent light fastness. And what that means is when we apply it on top of our pencils, what's going to happen is they're going to be protected. They'll be protected from wear and tear, and they will be protected from fading out when you wash your item. Okay, this is really important. Without this textile medium, and it doesn't need to be this brand per se, it's just the one that I get. There's many different brands out there on the market. But without them, there's no guarantee that your colors will not fade or disappear in the wash. Okay, again, definitely don't use an electric pencil sharpener on these pencils because they will break. The leads are quite soft. So you can see I've got 2 stars already done here. And what I have in the 1 star on this side is I actually have already put the medium on it. On the other side right now, it is just pencils. So let's pick out another color here. And oh gosh, we have so many choices. I love all the choices of colors that we have to choose from. The way we can blend them together is awesome. Okay, so let's take these 2. I'm going to do the next ones with some blue colors. And again, what I've done is I've just taken a lighter color blue, which is called iris blue, and then I'm going to use some navy blue for a little bit of shading. And what I'm going to do is exactly the same as I did down here. I am going to just lay on some color. Now, this is basically exactly like what we learned when we were children, coloring inside of the lines. Do you have to cover inside the lines? Absolutely not. I want you to color any way you choose, okay? And I'm just going to fill that star in. And this doesn't take long. It really is a very quick process. And if you want to do this with your project, that's great. However, you don't have to. You may decide that you want to TempLee your stars, and that's fine too. You may decide you don't want to do anything but let the fabric stand on its own and be the star of the show. A little bit of a pun there. It was intended, even though it wasn't really good. It was intended. Okay, so I've got my light layer. Now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to add some darker color on the star points and around the outer rim of the design. And what you can see what that's doing is that's giving us a little bit of a shadowing effect. And isn't that beautiful? That's just awesome. Now what's going to happen is we're going to take a small paintbrush. I'm not going to do it on this one. I'm going to go ahead and do it on this one. What you're going to notice is how the medium actually makes it appear as though the pencil is melting into the fabric. It smooths it out. It gives it just a beautiful, beautiful finish. And there we go. Isn't that awesome? So I really hope that you'll think about joining me on November 13th at 4 o'clock till 7 o'clock Central Time. And while you're trying to get yourself all ready for this awesome class, Revisited, if you don't already have your Starry Night templates, you could go to sewsteady.com, type in Starry Night, and what you'll find there is you're going to find some template sets. And we've got 8 template sets that house templates for the different blocks in this pattern. And they're numbered from 1 to 8. You could get one. Maybe you only want one design and you want to color it in all different ways. You can do that. Or you want to do all the designs and follow me through the 16 blocks of the Starry Night quilt. So I really look forward to seeing you at 4 o'clock Central Time on Monday.